This shit is so retardedly stupid that there's literally no basis for it. What you have to do is you have to facilitate various logical fallacies, all to kind of presuppose a belief that is not really based on anything. People will go, well, X character created a dimension, or X character did this, and obviously, all these examples that are cited by the God of War fanbase are not at all equivalent to the examples which are actually provable. So when somebody says, what Ares made a dimension, that specifically ignores that the art director of the games said it wasn't a dimension, it was an illusion. That's why Kratos' family is still alive, and that's why you have many versions of Kratos walking around. If this was a different dimension created by Ares, then why is there a hypothetical version of Kratos' family? This doesn't make any sense. Obviously, it's an illusion. It doesn't make any sense under the context that it's not one. If this was an alternate dimension, nothing makes sense. And here's the thing, too. You have other examples of people making up fallacious things and, not caring. It's because the versus fandom are retards, are biased retards. What you have is things like Kaguya creating a dimension. Actually, I think she created about 6. And what will occur is you'll have people go, well, you know what? All those dimensions are planet level, so Kaguya's multi-planet level or something around that tier. And so the funny thing is so Ares creates a dimension. He's multiverse level. No questions asked. And then Kaguya creates 6th, and it's planet level. And it's like, it's different though. Kaguya's dimensions are just a planet. And then you actually look at the series, and there's actually stars, and there's actually a moon. So it's like, it's not just a planet. So it's literally just cope by the versus fandom to make believe that certain characters are as strong as they had canon them to be. And when I say versus fandom, I'm talking about versus debaters, or whatever they call themselves, power scalers or whatever. And then you'll have other things like, oh yeah, they're gods though. And it's like, you know who else is gods though? Shibai is a god. Momoshiki calls himself a god. Kaguya is called a god. Well, goddess, but same difference. And then you know who else is called a god? Kami. Kami literally means god in Japanese. And nobody says these characters are multiverse level, so why is Kratos suddenly given this value set? Is it because he's fighting Greek gods? Historical Greek gods? Okay, wanna go there? Why isn't Record of Ragnarok multiverse level? Those are Greek gods. You see the problem here? Any argument you could make for it's a god, though, which is something you hear all the time from the God of War fanbase, and anytime you hear that, and you try to rationalize it by following the line of logic, you go, well, maybe he means just historical Greek gods, but he doesn't. The versus fandom means specifically the mythological ones apply to the God of War ones, even though it doesn't make sense. There's various different interpretations the God of War series has that differs from the normal series. Like, for example, in God of War, the one who kills the Hydra monster is Kratos. Kratos kills it in the first game. But in the mythology, it's Hercules, whatever you want to call him. He's the one who slays the Hydra. And here's the funniest thing of it all. Is the equivocation to the mythology is entirely subjective. Of course, it's, based on the mythology, but it's based on the mythology any more so than any other fictionalized interpretation of the characters. It's about as connected to Greek mythology as the Fate series is, as the Record of Ragnarok series is, as Marvel is, as DC is, as whatever is. It's as connected to the mythology as anything else that it vaguely adapts mythology. Like, it's as connected as anything that vaguely adapts it. Like, it's a stupid argument anyway. It's like saying because demons in Bible verse or in the Abrahamic religion can destroy multiverses according to some people or whatever, that therefore means demons in Doom can, or demons in Devil May Cry can, or demons in whatever series. No, we're talking about the God of War series, and if you want to apply mythology to it, that's your you're right. You can do that. But if you're talking about God of War, the video game series, then we're talking about strictly God of War. If you want to count mythological elements that are not in God of War, then you're not talking about God of War anymore. You're talking about a hypothetical composite version that you made up in your head to wank this overrated game series. The game series isn't even that bad. There's good cinematics. There's various things that are okay about it. The writing's pretty good. Stuff like that. The game itself isn't bad, but its fanboys are fucking retarded. Mostly because the Versus fandom has this, retarded idea of how things work. And then, you know what? When they do bring up feats, it's, so narrativized. Well, 4 hit Yggdrasil, and Yggdrasil is multiverse level, so 4 is multiverse level. It's like you don't actually see this reflected in the game. You don't see anything shaking when 4 hits Yggdrasil. There's not any, countryside damage. It's just not Yggdrasil. Jormungandr is sent back in the past, and that's the extent of what happens. It's just to follow up on something said in God of War 4. And you know what's a funny thing, too? If you're talking about the mythological comparisons and trying to make it a hypothetical composite version, where everything's the same and it's whatever, this doesn't make any sense because in the mythology, I don't recall 4 hitting Yggdrasil and sending him back in time. It's almost like it's a fictionalized version of that mythology, and it's doing what it wants. Can these retards shut the fuck up about saying, oh my god, Kratos beat Zeus, and it's all you're doing is equating, this God of War character that is named Zeus to the mythological version. This is the same as if I went to One Piece and I took the character named Zeus from One Piece and I said he's multiverse level because Zeus in mythology is multiverse level. And I'd love you to prove that too. I'd love you to prove Zeus in the mythology is multiverse level. It wouldn't prove anything about God of War, but it doesn't. But it still would be an interesting thing to prove because I don't think there was even an idea of what a multiverse was back then. So how are you actually going to portray, these characters being that strong, if that concept didn't exist yet? You know what I mean? How are you going to destroy a multiverse if a multiverse didn't exist at the time of the creation of the story? And here's the other thing, too. God of War fanboys will argue to the end of the earth that I'm biased. I don't know what I'm talking about. But they're the biased ones. And this isn't just me saying this out of my right hand. Even in this video, I gave numerous examples, rhetorically or otherwise, that prove that they are the ones who are having double standards. They are the ones who are biased. They are selectively choosing that God of War is the one to have the mythological influence. Why isn't 4 given a mythological composite? Why don't you give Marvel 4, the one from 616, why don't you, assume he does random shit from the mythology? Why is it only God of War that gets assumed shit from the mythology arguments? You have people saying, Hercules, whatever the fuck you want to call him. You have people saying that character from God of War, I'm strictly talking about God of War here, you have people saying he lifted the world in place of Atlas. Can you show me when in the games that happened? Because I could show you every scene that Hercules has in God of War 3, and I'll tell you for a matter of fact, he doesn't do shit in that regard. What people are doing is they're counting random shit from the mythology to argue that he's multiverse level. And then, you know what? Here's another argument I'll hear. Kratos is multiverse level because he fought Atlas, and Atlas can hold the world up, and the world is apparently a multiverse, even though world just refers to meaning planet, because world means whatever the fuck we want it to mean, depending on the context. Depending on the context in which we choose to make up. If Vegeta says he's destroying the world, it means he's just destroying a planet. But when we assume that for Arceus, or for characters we want to make believe are super strong when they're really not, they're destroying a universe. Because world means whatever the fuck the Versus fandom wants to make it mean. Because the Versus fandom are just a bunch of childish fucking retards who go on the internet and argue biasedly that their favorite characters are multiverse level, and these other characters are trash, and weak, and bullshit, and stupid, and fodder, because headcanon I made up in my head because I'm a retard. That's the extent of the Versus fandom's logic. There is no logic. It is just biased retardation in sheep's clothing, parading itself around as if it's intellectual criticism or intellectual judgments or intellectual anything. It's not intellectual, and all of you guys are retarded.